Hey you guys, it's Amy Gretchen. Welcome back to days 7 and 8 in my December daily album. So the first thing that I'm going to be tackling is day 7. And the idea that I have here is something that I was working on for the December daily product play plot class, but it never actually ended up in the class because I couldn't 100% figure out the design, and it was kind of driving me crazy even though I loved the idea of it. So I just wanted to show you, I think this was my, this is my original idea, and I cut it off actually because the problem is, the reason why I couldn't really figure it out is I was trying to figure out how to include it into the album and also allow this to flip up. So I could not for the life of me figure it out until I saw, and it probably was Allie, maybe it was her, the hexagon that she put right in the center. I was like, yeah, why couldn't I just cut this down? So I've cut that off. And, you know, why couldn't I just have this sitting on top of like a transparency? So that's what I'm going to try doing today. I don't have it here. I've cut it off, but the way that it was attaching to the album and then having this flip up, it was weird with all of these pattern papers, and I literally could not figure it out, and I didn't like the way it was looking, so I just scrapped the project. But now I'm coming back to it because I think that maybe I can make it work, but I honestly, I'm not 100% sure, because also you can see that I have two pieces of paper here. One of them is this paper that was from Paislee Press, and I think this is so beautiful. Sorry, I've got a little bit of sun that's trying to peek through. I loved this marble, and I haven't really been able to recreate that with the printer. So I'm using the actual paper, but it's got the dots on the back side, and you can see that I had this journaling that I printed right on it. So it's possible I may need to cut out this journaling and put it on top of there. Or I was thinking, and I made, let's see if I can find, I just made one to kind of test it out, and I do this and now I can't find it, of course. I was actually thinking about, you know, having the pattern paper, which I do, on the back side, and then when it folds over, it would have like a stencil, something like this. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me see if I can get away from the sun. See that very well. But then it had the, you know, the stencil poking through. So I honestly am not sure where I'm going to go with this. I just decided no more practice. It's time to jump in and get started. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to move some of this stuff aside so I've got more room to work. I'm going to trim this one out, and I think I might use some, it's possible I could use some of this paste with one of these stencils to make a design on here. But like I said, I'm not 100% sold on that. I may end up just using this. So I'm going to see how that works. All right, you guys, so jumping in, the first thing that I'm going to work on is putting the number onto this acetate hexagon. So this hexagon is plastic, but it's thin enough that you are able to die cut into this. And I actually did this in Allie Edwards' travel product play class. I believe that was available this year in June. And she had these really cool hexagons that were the same, you know, acetate. And I went ahead and I die cut a word into it, and it worked out really, really great. And I love how it turned out in the album, that I thought, you know, this is something that I could definitely do with a number. So I've decided to just add the number 7, and then I'm die cutting right into the hexagon. It die cuts beautifully. You'll see that it looks really great. There's no problems with it at all. It does crack a little bit as it goes through, but it actually die cuts really cleanly and really nice, and I love this option. This die set comes from Mama Elephant, and I will link to it below if I can find it. It is 2 or 3 years old, maybe 2 years old. But it's really nice to have a smaller alpha die set for options like this. So if you're in the market, I will have that linked below. All right, so now I am working on my base. So I pulled it down a little bit when I printed it onto that 6x8 piece of paper, just because I wanted to make sure not to lose any of the top, because I have this set up perfectly so that when I score it, I'm not scoring over any of the words, that the score is actually going in between. So I needed to make sure I got the exact right measurements, and I did. And when you score it, I'm scoring at 2 3/8 of an inch, and that just went right in between my words. And that's something that you can definitely do when you're putting it together in Illustrator, just to get those exact right measurements. All right, so now I'm just folding along that score line, and then I'm gonna cut that 6x8 piece of paper because it's definitely too long. And I did not cut it short enough, so later on I'll end up having to cut it one more time. But I just wanted to make sure that that hexagon fit, and I definitely wanted to have where the gold and that pink meet, I wanted to be right along the edge of that piece of paper. So you'll see that when I put it together. So now I'm moving on to my photos. So the size of the photos are 1 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/4 of an inch. So it's actually the size of my journaling as well. So I just had 3 of those boxes side by side, and I actually made the boxes where the photos were going to be a little bit smaller, just so I could hide it with the photo. But I definitely wanted to know where to add my photo when I was designing it. But you can see when I printed it out on that 6x8 piece of paper that I did not add those boxes like I did to the other one. So those were just really placements for me. All right, so now I need to cut these photos in half so that I can add them onto the piece of paper. So because I've got this flap that's folding down, I need to break up the photo so it will actually fold. If I just added the photo as is, it'd have a really hard time folding because that photo paper is so thick. So if you're folding anything together and you're adding a photo, you're going to need to break it up. So it doesn't, I'm not cutting it in an ideal place, just because there's not really a great place to be cutting either of these images. But based on the design, it was just something that needed to be done. So I think I definitely need to cut a little bit more, maybe at the top and at the bottom. So maybe at the top of that photo there. And I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting it so it is in line with the text box. So that's one of the reasons why I added a text box around my text, is just so I would know exactly where to place my photo. So that's just a little trick that I decided to use. So I'm just cutting my photos down a little bit just to make sure that they're fitting. And then I'm adding just that little bit of space right on the fold so that I'm able to then fold this down without having any issue. Now, like I said, these did not get necessarily cut in the most ideal place. Like I had to go through my daughter's face, but it was just the nature of the photo. And that's definitely the photo that I wanted to use because she just had this really amazing expression on her face, and I loved it. You could really see how she was feeling in the moment after her performance. And that's what this day is all about. On Saturday the 7th, which is when this is, on day 7, my kids had their first cheer competition of the season, and they were amazing. Like, they were just so brilliant out there. I've never seen them perform so well, and it was just such an amazing moment. It was really fun to see how good they felt about it. So that's really what this story is about. Just, watching them give it their all, do their very best, and them come away as champions. They actually took first place. So it was a really amazing day and really awesome to witness it. So that's what this story is all about. All All right, so right now I am creating the hinge that's going to cover up and keep that flap closed. So you definitely want to use a brad or a grommet or something that's going to allow you to shift that hexagon back and forth so that it can close up the top. Now I found that this paper was really thick. The 6x8 paper was a little too thick and it wanted to keep popping up. So the hexagon, that plastic was a little too thin actually to keep it closed. So I do end up putting just a little bit of adhesive right onto the hexagon to try and keep it closed, but it's temporary adhesive, so it's not going to rip the paper or anything like that. So that was kind of the trick I used. I was a little bummed when I realized that acetate just wasn't strong enough, but you know, you do what you need to do to make your design work. I probably could have reinforced that hexagon with another piece of plastic. Like I could have used maybe this star acetate if I wanted to kind of reinforce it, but I decided to just leave it as is, but that is an option as well. You could also just go ahead and create your own shape with paper if you wanted to create a different shape for the closure, and then you could make it as thick as you wanted so that it would, you know, hold down that piece of paper a little bit easier. So I don't know, just a couple options for you guys there. All right, so because I went ahead and I printed right on this 6x8 piece of paper, it's printed with the dot pattern. And I thought that it was a little hard to read the text. Now I could have left it, but it just felt a little hard to read. So I went ahead and I ended up cutting out the other printout that I had, and I just cut right along the inside of the text box, and I'm then going to add the text box right onto this piece of paper so it fits in really well. And because I had designed it with that fold going right in between one of the lines, I was able to cut it right in between the lines and not have to worry about it going right over some of my words or cutting into my words. So it actually worked out really well. So if you're going to do something like this, try and design it so the fold is right in between one of the lines. All right, so I just wanted to add a little embellishment to the top, and I thought a star, of course, would be really great for this since it was about cheerleading in one of their competitions. And then I grabbed over some of the word phrase stickers. I think this maybe came in last year's kit. And I knew that there was one that said holiday cheer or good cheer or something like that. So I grabbed over the one that said holiday cheer, cut off the holiday, and then I'm just cutting down the cheer because it was a little bit too thick, and added that right on to the star. So I thought that was a lot of fun there. All right, so now I'm actually going to deal with putting it onto the acetate. So I went off screen and I cut it because it's so much easier to cut it with my large cutter, and bringing it back here. And now I'm just going to be adding the holes, and I'm using the page protector to help me figure out where I want the holes. I decided that I wanted the holes to be a little bit smaller, but then it actually didn't fit in my album. So I needed to just use the regular power punch from We Are Memory Keepers. And then I was able to fit it in. And now I'm just going to go ahead and adhere this piece right onto the acetate. So this is a really great option when you have something that flips up that the binding is actually going to interfere with. It's a really great option to then just, you know, put it onto something, put it onto transparency, put it onto a piece of paper, whatever you need to do in order to make it so you're able to still have that interactive piece in the album. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, you guys, so I am moving on to day 8. And for day 8, I'm working on the back side of day 7. And I just decided to do a large photo, so to cover up that space. And it's actually a little bit smaller than a 4x6, but it's so minimal. It basically is a 4x6 photo for all intents and purposes. And what I decided to do is my story is actually going to be behind the photo, and you're going to pull it out. So kind of like I did for day 2, I believe, when I had a pocket in the photo or the 3x4 card came out. It's going to be a similar thing. It's just going to come out behind the photo. So I've got my journaling done, and I used, I think it was a Paislee press card that said everyone together or something like that. And I really liked it because it's basically what this story is about. The story is just about our Sundays and coming together and watching this Christmas devotional together. And it's a little bit about what that Christmas, the messages in the Christmas devotional, which I really enjoyed. You can see that I went through and looked at a lot of my 3x4 cards, and I'm still kind of trying to decide what I want to put on the backside. I just want to add something to the backside just so it's not, plain and white. So I grabbed over this 'Tis the Season card. I believe this came in last year's Paislee press kit. And I'm just going to add it right onto the backside. And the card's a little bit bigger or a little bit taller, so I needed to cut off the bottom there. And I think I cut off the sides a little bit because it didn't fit perfectly. So I ended up cutting the sides off just a sliver. And now you can see how it's actually going to fit in behind the photo. So the next thing I'm going to be working on is a tab. I've got one of those 2-inch Avery tabs, and I needed something to put onto the card so you would know that there was something behind the photo to pull out. So I'm using one of the Avery tabs, and I was thinking of putting on one of the word phrase stickers, but ultimately I decided to grab over an old stamp set. So this is a stamp set I believe is probably from 2016 December Daily Supplies. I really love this stamp set because it's got so many great Christmas type phrases to use, and they fit perfectly on these Avery tabs. So I absolutely love them, and I think I've used them every single year since they came out. It's definitely one of my go-tos because it's just got such great sentiments, and I also really like the font as well. I'm just using a red ink. This is the Cherry Red from Gina. I really wanted, one of the reasons why I didn't go with the stickers is because I wanted a pop of red kind of coming out, since that photo is black and white and all the text is black, and then you've got the red heart. So I wanted another piece of red on this day. I did think that tab looked a little bare, and I wanted to add something to it. So I grabbed over some puffy stickers. This came from the Crepe Paper Merry Days collection last year, and just put one of the small black stars on top. So I thought that just really added. So the next step is going to be adhering the photo. And for whatever reason, I have edited out, I suppose, when I added the adhesive onto the photo. So I apologize for that. Like, I honestly don't even remember. But what I did is I took my 1/8 inch score tape and I made sure to adhesive all along the back side except for that portion where I wanted to be able to slide in and out my journaling. So you kind of saw that I left a portion open for that card. And what you'll see a little bit later is because I had like 2 pieces of paper back to back, it was pretty thick and it was actually kind of hard, really tight fitting in that journaling. So what I end up doing, and you'll see that coming up, is I pull up my photo and take off some of the adhesive. And it's actually really easy to pull up the photo just because it's sitting on top of plastic. So you'll see that coming up, but that just allows a little bit more room. So if you're going to do something like this, and there's a lot of people that are doing, pull out journaling, just make sure that you leave enough space for that journaling to be able to slide in and out of. You don't want it to be too loose, but you want it to be loose enough so that you can slide it in and out comfortably. All right, so while I was chatting about that, I actually added my number to one of those cork stars that came in the kit, and it has those flecks of gold in it, which is so pretty, I think. And then I just added the number 8 in gold, just so one of those small stickers right onto it. And I think that that just really adds. All right, you guys, so I'm actually done with both days 7 and 8. I'm kind of fiddling with this tab because it was kind of bubbled up a little bit and it was driving me crazy, but I do end up just leaving it because I think it was going to rip my paper if I tried to replace it. So I am done, and I wanted to be completely transparent about both days 7 and 8. So I really like the foundation of both of these pages, but for whatever reason, I feel like both are missing something, especially day 7, because when it's next to day 6, it feels like I'm missing something. I feel like I need something maybe in between day 6 and 7. So maybe, adding a card or adding a design element. Like I'm thinking of maybe cutting out the word merry and bright or something like that. I don't know. I need to add something maybe on top of that 7 or the tab, or it needs something, maybe a little color. You guys, I literally cannot figure out what it is, but I'm not 100% satisfied. But you know what? It's okay. I've set it aside. I've taken my pictures. And if I can't figure it out, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to continue on with my album. But I just want to let you guys know that that does happen from time to time, where you've got an idea, you execute it, and you're like, it's not exactly how I had envisioned it. So if you find yourself in a similar situation, give yourself a break and realize that this is all a part of the creative process, and just move on from it and continue going forward. And hopefully an idea will come as you continue on with the other days, and you'll be able to go back and finish the one that you didn't like. But for whatever reason, if an idea doesn't come, remember that there's going to be some things that you create that you love, and there's going to be some things that you create that you just like. And that's totally fine. Like I said, it's all a part of the process. So definitely give yourself a break. All right, you guys, that is it for me. I think I have talked way too much for one video. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. All right, you guys, we will see you in the next one. Bye.